She wasn't clear enough on the policies. She did speak a lot of her personal history, which was great. But I still don't feel like she's ready.
After Rachel Maddow and Jake Tapper spent their time gushing about Kamala Harris's transcendent political performance last night on the stage at the DNC, they actually spent a little bit of time asking the people who really matter, voters. And over on CNN, we got a soundbite from an African-American voter in Pennsylvania that should actually give the Kamala Harris people nightmares.
She wasn't clear enough on the policies. She did speak a lot of her personal history, which was great. But I still don't feel like she's ready. I feel like more so she should wait. I don't want to per se vote for someone that is a backup.
Not ready for prime time. That's not the message I think the Harris people wanted. And Akash, for as long as I can remember, I've seen political pundits lamenting the fact that the American people don't really care about policy anymore. We need to have a serious policy discussion this election cycle. Well, I think Trump and the Republicans are very interested in having a serious policy discussion this cycle, but Kamala Harris is not being forced to do that.
No, you're right, Larry. To be honest, I don't know if Donald Trump is interested in having a serious policy discussion either, but at the very least, as we discussed, he represents a change of direction from the status quo of the Biden-Harris White House, which Kamala Harris does not, right? The American people may not be ideological. They may not know exactly what they want, but what they want is a change of direction in some way, and they want to hear new ideas that they think will give them hope of a better future. She is not offering that at all. She's offering lofty language and shattering a glass ceiling and all these sort of characteristic things, trying to recreate the energy of the Obama campaign. But ultimately, people deserve better than that, even if she won't do it and the media won't ask it of her, which again brings us back to the same point that we have made over and over again. The only person ultimately who can prosecute this case against her effectively and force her to answer questions is Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. He can talk about whatever else he wants, but if he is not hammering her on the economy and on the border, no one else can do it as effectively. And I think it's incumbent on him to do so because she certainly is not making those points clear herself.
Listen, I think when it comes to the economy and the border and national security and Israel, I think that Donald Trump would love to have those policy discussions. And Sarah, I think any observing viewer, like this gentleman that they just interviewed on CNN, if after the 4 days in Milwaukee with the Republicans and 4 days in Chicago with the Democrats, I think it would be a lot easier to tell what the Republicans plan to do should they win the election versus what the Democrats plan to do if they win the election.
Absolutely. I mean, Kamala wasn't even qualified to debate J.D. Vance. And now 33 days later, 10 words. If you stand for nothing, what do you stand for? Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hamilton. So it's just fascinating because, you would want her to take the time to actually say what she wants to do. Not necessarily just like soft launching, but, it's the day after her acceptance speech. The website isn't stacked with it. It's too soon. There were a lot of candidates, and even on the Republican side, who, they backed out because it wasn't their time yet. They're getting ready for 2028. At this time, we're going to see the Harris honeymoon. It's going to be the same thing. She, before this, had never received a delegate in her life. It was a coronation. It was a coup. It was curated chaos by the Democrats. And now nobody knows what they want. And now she's expecting even just the minority voters to agree with her because she looks a certain way. But at the end of the day, she's a far, far left socialist who doesn't even know what she wants. She just wants the presidential nominee.
Jim, she's a former attorney general and a U.S. senator. She's now a vice president, but she's never actually had any serious foreign policy job. I mean, the one job she did have, which was to get to the root cause of the immigration problem and the border security problem, they're now denying that she ever had. Usually when a candidate has that thin of a foreign policy record, they pick a running mate who can bolster that. But instead, she picked, Red China, Minnesota governor, Tim Walz. At this point, after the convention, shouldn't we know a little bit more about what she's capable of doing with regard to national security and foreign policy?
I'm terrified to actually think about what she is capable of doing, with the same mob behind her, and actually a lesser quality mob than Biden, who had a lesser quality mob than Obama. There is absolutely no skills in that part of the Democrat Party for foreign policy. So they're toast if they do it. And the idea that Waltz was going to bolster her because, he's a retired command sergeant major who served 24 years in the National Guard and went to war and carried a gun. Except he did none of those, except serve 24 years and retire with one of the lowest awards. He got an award for retirement after 24 years that a Spec 4 with 2 years experience can get for leaving Germany to come back home to the United States. He's incompetent. He's a liar. He does nothing to help her, which is J.D. Vance is going to point out. And she's got no leg to stand on. So the vibe is, and the joy and all of the media hype only gets them to this point. Now they're going to be exposed as the empty pantsuit and the lying poser that they really are.
One other fun thing that happened yesterday is that the rumor mill in DC was going nuts about a special guest. They've carved out time in the schedule for a special guest, and everyone immediately thought, it's got to be Beyonce, which, I mean, that wouldn't have been a big surprise, would it, if Beyonce had shown up? But she didn't. Then they thought it was Taylor Swift, and she didn't. Don Lemon assured us it was going to be George W. Bush. And the fact that people believe that is actually something I think George W. Bush should address, because of course he wasn't there. No, it was finally revealed right before Kamala Harris took the stage who the special guest was going to be.
In anticipation here and elsewhere that there may be a special guest, I am told by Democrats that Kamala Harris was their guest. They did not want a celebrity at the end of this convention to essentially compete with her. One senior advisor telling me this is a deadly serious election. And if you looked at the end of this program, having Leon Panetta come on, the former defense secretary, really presenting Vice President Harris as a plausible commander-in-chief, that is one of the reasons I'm told that there was not a celebrity performance at the end.
Leon Panetta, the man who assured you that the Hunter Biden laptop was really Russian disinformation, he's there to make sure everyone knows that Kamala Harris is a plausible commander-in-chief, because when is he ever wrong? Well, Akash, I mean, did you think it was going to be Beyonce? Or even more importantly, what does it tell you that they had to float this rumor to get people interested to watch the speech in the first place?
It almost makes you believe like they wanted a celebrity there to upstage her to take attention off of her, because then the conversation would be about the celebrity and not about the fact that even if it is a deadly serious election, that we ought to know what the presidential candidates stand for. Maybe a kind of relevant question here. But ultimately, we saw them continue to do what they have done for weeks, right? Which is that they propped her up. She read the speech properly, and the speech was very, very carefully crafted to reach out to the middle and try to build her credibility and all these things. And look, Larry, they are doing what they think they need to do to win this election, which is to keep her very scripted, avoid policy conversations, and hope that her glass-shattering candidacy, again, can be enough to get her over the line. But the American people deserve better than that, and it is incumbent on conservatives to press that case, because Bidenomics has been an abject failure for the economy, at the border, and for foreign policy, and she has been at the helm by the president's side every single step of the way. We have to chart a better path forward and show the American people how and why this administration has failed them over and over again.
We'll have to leave it there, guys. We're out of time, but I do want to let all of our viewers know that on next week's roundtable, a very special surprise guest. Beyonce is going to, no, she's not.